Welcome to another episode of the Trailblazers Experience podcast, the podcast where we have candid conversations with women sharing their career journeys. And my next guest today on this sunny Saturday is Nadine Maggi, Managing Director of the founder-led brand Sweet Freedom. And they provide some amazing syrups for drizzling on your food, in your drinks, and also some fizzy drinks as well. But we'll get into that. First of all, welcome, Nadine.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I'm really pleased to be here and hopefully share some bowls of wisdom or insights, or just even a couple of snippets about my career so far.
And you've had such an interesting career trajectory. I always say the progression isn't linear, and life has an interesting way of opening up opportunities. So I'm really curious just to talk about your journey and what sort of led you to the career path that you sort of ended up in.
Yes, thank you. So I'll be totally frank and honest. This was not the career path I envisaged when I was in school. I wanted to become a forensic scientist, and I was curious about that. Unfortunately, I was the easily distracted one in the classroom, so my education vote probably wasn't the best. So that scuppered that career move. And then I still look at class. I thought, well, I become a police officer instead. They said I was too young to join, so they said I need to join the armed forces. So I was like, okay, right, off I go. I'll go off and join the armed forces and travel the world and do really interesting things. You always then envisage yourself being a bit James Bondy, being undercover and all of that type of stuff. That's some fantastic years in the armed forces. And at that point, I decided to think, what do I want to do next? And that I just happened to fall into HR.
Before we even talk about that, Nadine, honestly, armed forces, my brother-in-law is ex-military, and I know to join the armed forces, you sort of have to do a sort of assessment test to actually get into it. So physical as well. So were you sporty growing up? I mean, just to go from pivoting from forensic scientist to I'm just going to join the armed forces, that is crazy, but formidable in itself.
I was extremely sporty. Used to love athletics. Used to love running, but my passion was football. And way back in the early sort of 70s, the female football wasn't really known of. There was no female sports team, so I used to have to play with grown men. So I used to have to go and play football against grown men, and that really hardened me up. But I love sport, love passion. I had a passion for football, so I played football a lot. So yeah, had a natural sort of inclination to running and football. So there was sort of fitness there.
I think it's important to note that is part of the assessment test where you have to pass a specific fitness level test to get in before then everything happens. And what did you do in the armed forces then? What sort of, things did you have?
I was in the Royal Signals. So I was in the communications field and did my training there and worked in sort of basic communications and all the communications field. So did some tours of the UK, did a tour of Northern Ireland in the early 90s, which was a little bit hairy, but it was very interesting.
I mean, that's formidable. And then you retired, left the armed forces. I mean, you're too young to retire. You're only 25. So what happened there?
I fell in love. I met my husband. I'm still with him today. It's 33 years later. So, and in the armed forces, one of you gets posted in one place, another one gets posted in another. And I said, well, see what I'll do is I will leave and I'll come with you, because I think I can use my Royal Signal skills to go and do a career somewhere else type of stuff. Now he followed me out a year later because we then realised that even one of you being in the armed forces, you get posted away. So I met my husband and decided to leave the armed forces, and I had a great time in the armed forces and gained so many brilliant skills that I still use today. But that's when I fell into HR.
And when you say fell, curious as you've always been?
Yes, curious, and it was a temporary job. I thought, well, I'll get this to buy me over. Believe it or not, I was thinking, I'll go and do something in personal training, because I did a little bit of a diploma in fitness and nutrition whilst I was in the armed forces. And I thought, well, I'll go and do a personal trainer. Well, I'll take this job just to bringing an income whilst I'm looking for a personal training job and building up my career. Fell into HR, absolutely loved it. Had a great female mentor, HR director, and just my career progressed there. I just love being with people, and it was just a natural thing for me to stand. I ended up staying in HR for many, many years because I just curious about people, curious about psychology, curious about human interactions and behaviors. I think it's a really fascinating area, and that's how I came into HR.
It's really interesting just hearing your story. Your career path is quite unique, and I'm connecting the dots to, the discipline that it takes to be in the armed forces and working as a team, being resilient, facing different challenges, different scenarios, different conflict situations, and then human resources, which is all about people.
Yeah.
I feel like it's shaped trajectory in terms of now in a managing director role, all those competencies, but real life experiences has sort of helped you in this dynamic.
Absolutely. I think I credit my career in the armed forces and HR for I always hope to say I'm a much well-rounded leader, because you're right, the armed forces gives you strategy, direction, decision making, planning, vision. You have to make sure that you're making the right decision in the armed forces, because they can have significant consequences if you don't get it right and you have a plan meticulously. You've got a lot of people who you're responsible for. So I believe that my HR career gave me that, but also working as part of a team. Absolutely. Is it's not just a solo effort. You don't get anything accomplished by yourself, because you have to make sure that everybody is with you. Everybody believes in that vision and is willing to come with you on that vision. And that's where I gained some great leadership skills. And then it's on the other side, the HR piece is all about empathy, collaboration, communication, understanding people's situations, understanding how people think, how people behave, and how you can get the best out of people. So with that strategy and vision and leadership, and then the people empathy EQ type of thing, I think's made it much more rounded. And I think that's why it's such a different career path to most people. You don't tend to find many HR people moving into becoming a managing director. There's not many of us out there, and I credit that with the armed forces and HR.
So let's talk about that, because you are right. If you sort of do a Google search or look on LinkedIn, most people become managing directors or CEOs. They either have a finance background, so they were CFOs before that, so the whole finance trajectory has helped them, or they were management consultants who've slipped into that role. It is different, and I think it's also inspiring, because I think the brands, businesses, service providers of today, I personally don't think you have to come from one specific area in order to become a managing director or a CEO. There are so many key skills and competencies which you've just talked about, and what makes a leader. There's so many definitions. You can be a transformational leader, a collaborative leader, authoritative, which is great in terms of making decisions, but just that whole encompassing, it's really great to hear and just see that there's a different way, a different path that one can take. Talk to me about how you landed that role.
I was thinking, you mentioned the word rise at the start, and that was curious and inquisitive. I was probably one of those annoying HR directors who always asked why. Why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way of doing it? Have we thought differently? And what that gave me is a lot of insight into every area. And again, when we're going to talk about finance, we talk about having insights across the business. HR has exactly the same thing. You work with salespeople, marketing people, operations people, finance people, because you have to understand what they do. And I used to always say to my team, in order to be a great HR person, you have to understand the business. How can you advise the business, and how can you help people if you don't truly understand what they do? So it's about getting under the skin of what makes people good and how to achieve the best out of them. So you have to understand every single role. So I think it's that curious nature of always wanting to know more about every single discipline in an organisation. And I think is my CEO who took the risk on me, stole those insights rather than just to shut me up around the board table from that.
Okay, then you come in now, Nadine, and you do it. You show us how it's done, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because he's all the skills rather than just the shutting it.
I love that. Yeah, that's just the best way to just shut someone up, to say, we'll give you the role and then you can stop asking all the questions. You can provide us with the answers as well. And just talk to me about your the challenges that you faced. So you've sort of summarized your life in a whistle stop tour in 10 minutes of things that you've done, but you must have had some challenges during this time. And we know that in society today, there are a lot of people who are suffering with mental health as a result, because they haven't had anyone to talk to or had any leaders showing examples of challenges they may have had. And I feel this is an opportunity to say, do you know what? It hasn't been an easy road, and these are some of the challenges I've faced, and this is how I got through it.
Yeah, I think it starts out from the outset. As a woman, sort of growing up from a low socioeconomic background, so my family was very working class. I was brought up, unfortunately, my father's business went under, and we were all unemployed. My parents were unemployed for a long while, so I was one of the children in school who was on free school meals, who was turning up to get Provident checks so we could buy our school uniforms, getting hand-me-downs from our friends. So I started out with that trajectory, and then as I say, unfortunately, I was easily distracted, so I wasn't focused at school. So then I had the challenge of not leaving school with the best qualifications. I left school at 16 because I felt I needed to work to bring income for my family. So at one point at 16, I had 3 jobs. So that helped me with that whole resilience and that whole work and hard ethic. So that this felt before the forces, as having 3 jobs to bring in an income to help support my family. That started out that career. And then I think as a woman growing up in the sort of, and starting a career in the 90s, there was still a lot of inequality. It was a very much a male world dominated by men in the boardroom, and you really had to prove yourself twice as much as the man next to you for promotion. And so, yeah, being a woman growing up, it was those challenges. And then I suppose at that point, then unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was very young. I was 25 when she passed away, and she'd had mental health issues. So that was another challenge, is helping her through that and seeing those mental health issues and how they can truly impact people. This is not a volunteer and stress. This is that she was significantly impacted by mental health. And then as I got through my career, I had money issues. Starting out, we struggled to pay the bills. It was a very challenging time. Luckily, we worked really hard to get ourselves through that. And then when I had my daughter, we found out she was severely autistic and had learning difficulties. So then being a mum, trying to work and bringing up an autistic daughter, another challenge on top of that. So from a personal perspective, yeah, it hasn't been an easy journey. And the same with work. I've had challenges, really bad bosses, peers who would be very political and backstab, and businesses that were struggling at many times as well. So I've had the business struggles at the same time as well. And when I became managing director, I took over a loss-making business. And that's not an easy thing to do, and having to make decisions about people's livelihoods to keep a business afloat. They're probably some of the toughest decisions you ever have to make, and the toughest challenges I've come across.
I mean, Nadine, thank you so much for being so vulnerable. You never know what's going on in people's lives and what situations have shaped who they are from a personal experience and professional. And as someone who's also been through adversity from a personal perspective, when you're going through adversity, you just feel like there's just one thing, and then there's another thing that happens, and then another thing happens, and you sort of think, seriously, when am I going to get out of this? And it's only hindsight is a very interesting thing. You're probably on reflection all those experiences you talked about have made you show more empathy. The way you think about things, the way you view people, the way you view the world, the way you view business is probably, your perspective has probably changed as well.
Definitely. I think the final was during COVID. I was trying to get my best friend was diagnosed with motor neuron disease and given 5 years to live. And I suppose the great Your Horror quote summarizes that journey, which is in the face of adversity, there's dream. And that I never forgot that dream of wanting to be the best person I could be. No matter what the challenge was, is how can I overcome this challenge? What's the next thing I can do? So yeah, that's a very recent challenge that I've come across, and try to use my social position to try and help and raise funds for motor neuron disease as well, because that's my best friend's being diagnosed with that. That was another challenge, not as much of a challenge for her, but trying to raise awareness and raise funds for that as well.
Yeah, indeed. And even just looking, we're going to talk about Sweet Freedom. I've seen that there's a big push around supporting charities as that is a business. So talk to me about your role at Sweet Freedom and why that's important to you, and an interesting business that I hadn't heard of, and here we are talking about it.
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting move. So I've worked for big FMCGs before. I mean, multi-million pound FMCGs. And during COVID, I had a little bit of an epiphany. I was writing an email to every employee every day during COVID, talking about how to keep focused on your mental health, how to get through adversity, finding what your passion is in life, what's your purpose, what makes you happy. And at that point, I thought, what do I want this to do? And I'm working really hard so I can help support my daughter, but I'm not spending any time on my daughter during the year she's growing up. So I decided to take a career break and take a year out. However, sort of 6 months into that career break, I was approached by somebody to say, I've got this very little company. It needs to help to grow, and your career path is really interesting, and we'd love you to come on board because of some of the ethics that you're displaying as an individual, is the ethics of Sweet Freedom. And as soon as I heard about this company, I just thought, you're ticking every single box. It's about helping people to have a healthier diet, trying to get people out of the obesity problems that we have, but not forgetting that things have to taste really nice. Is you can't just give up on things tasting good whilst having those ethics. Well, as soon as I spoke to the founders and saw all of the charity things they did for cancer, for animals, for welfare, listening to the ethics they have about sustainability, using no palm oil, not using refined sugar, no chemicals or artificial sweeteners, I was just like, this is sold. I love this company. And I suppose it's going to take a company like this to sort of sway my mind as well, because beforehand I worked with Linda McCartney, and the family had the same ethics, which was about focusing on what's right for the planet, what's right for the people, what's right for animals, all of that type of stuff. And that sort of stuck with me. So the next company I joined, I wanted to make sure it had those ethics, because it's not just about career, it's not just about finance, it's that try to job you love and you'll never work a day in your life type of stuff. It's very easy to wake up and come to work knowing that you work for an ethical company, and making the decisions based on ethics rather than pure profit.
Yeah, and a smaller business as well, isn't it? So you're getting to work closely with founders as well.
Yeah.
What unique perspectives do you think they've brought to the table to sort of, invigorate your decision making and being an MD and asking the why questions that you love so much?
I suppose I always thought I was passionate about the businesses I work with and the brands that I work with. Until you meet a founder, you do not know passion until you meet founders of their own businesses. They have put their own blood, sweat, tears, livelihoods on the line to follow a path which they're passionate about. And that's certainly true with the founders of Sweet Freedom, is the love to wanting to do better is amazing. Does it have its challenges? Absolutely, yes, because you're cluing in, especially as an outsider, to say, like, what you've done before is fantastic, but in order to get it to the next level, I'm going to challenge some of the the thoughts that you have about your brand. And that's been tricky sometimes, but I work with some great I work with a great founder who is flexible. And first, I feel as when you learn about founders is the ability, the agility, the flexibility, they're willing to make mistakes, the risk taking that they are willing to do. You don't get as much of that in an FMCG because you've got lots of teams and boards who maybe aren't willing to take as big a risk as possible as what you can when you're working with a founder, is they are much more flexible and agile. So I found working with founders very, very interesting. And some people say don't work for founders because they're a nightmare. I was lucky at my previous organization. I worked for the person who founded the business, so I had a little bit of experience about entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurs think. So I think that helped me to move to I'd say a VSME. It's not an SME, it's a VSME. It is a very small company, where you can bring your FMCG thinking to it because the founders are open to that.
That's interesting. So working with founders, I worked with founders before, is really interesting. I'm always in awe of how they first of all had an idea and decided to run with it, and then
Yeah.
it's grown into a business that has a P&L and revenue and profit, etc. You're joining a business that's founder led, so there's the passion about the mission, the vision of what they're doing. But we all know that companies fail that are startups, and that even though they've scaled up, they just fail to get over the line where they are profitable and can continue to grow. What made you say, looking at the finances, that you said, I think there's an opportunity here, apart from the passion and the people and the message, but there's something I can do here to help this business?
I think it was seeing the tenacity and resilience that those founders brought. As you say, not many people can succeed in doing that. You've got to have extreme resilience and extreme tenacity. I saw some of the challenges that they've been through. I thought, right, because we are in for a bit of a rough ride here. We're going to have a lot of a challenge. And working in FMCG is not easy at times, especially when it's about commodities and pricing and working with retailers who have their own challenges as well. But it was the fit of the company. So knowing that they wanted to do the right thing, it was the resilience and tenacity that they showed. And also the willingness to learn. I work with a founder who is willing to learn, who's willing to listen, who wants to get better, who is willing to listen to challenge and ideas. And when you've got a willingness to learn, a resilience and a tenacity, ethics and passion, then you go, right, I think we can do something here. We can do something with this business. And it's great product. That
helps
easy
as well, isn't it? Yeah. Product market fit, market product fit. It has to be, you should be able to sell a product and there should be a customer out there as well. But someone who's a novice and who doesn't know what FMCG is, you've mentioned it a few times. What is it?
So FMCG is what's known as fast-moving consumer goods. So pretty much food or anything you buy in the supermarkets is what we consider a fast-moving consumer goods. Something that you go in and buy in the shop has been made by a fast-moving consumer goods. So FMCG is about, it could be food, it can be non-food. So I've had experience of non-food with Hallmark cards, so the greeting card industry, and in food with Hain, working with some brands like Yorkshire Pronda, Linda McCartney, Snook Garden Stoop, and then moving to Sweet Freedom. So fast moving consumer goods is basically a business which sells products.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We always forget about what actually goes into producing food products, and there's so much in there, and very tight margins as well. What are some of the challenges or the successes you've had as a brand that is, so first of all, it's vegan, it's healthy, it's, has all the ingredients for something that are good for people, especially if we're fighting an obesity crisis, nutritional crisis, just people not knowing or understanding what they're putting into their bodies. Does that affect the decision making of who you want to trade with and where you can sell your products? Because if they're squeezing your margin, but they might provide you with that larger customer base, they still might not be the right one for you as a brand.
Yeah, I think you've got to be sensible in these things, which is working with the resellers. It means you get volume, which means you get scale, which means you can keep your prices affordable. And certainly during the cost of living crisis, is you've got to make sure that you're helping people, because it's all right having healthy food, but if you're on a low income, that's not your first point of call. Is you can still be seen as a luxury. So how do you help lower income families move into a healthy agenda? Well, first of all, you've got to be value for money. The second thing, you've got to be tasty, because it's okay being healthy, but as I keep saying, you've got to be affordable and you've got to be tasty. Otherwise, people aren't picking you up again. So, and there are a couple of companies who you work with and you go, you're basically squeezing too tight now, and the margin that you're putting on is very against the ethics of what we're trying to do as a company here. We're trying to keep the prices as low as we possibly can. And there are some companies who you go, yeah, maybe you don't want to work with you, which is very tricky because it's all about sales, it's all about growth, it's all about volumes. And I used to say, sales is vanity, profit is sanity. So you always got to keep looking at the bottom line, because there's no point in having a business which could go under and make everybody redundant. You've got to make sure that you're keeping your head above water and making it a viable proposition for the long term. It's all just keeping that 5-10 year plan in mind about the decisions you make today, how they're going to impact you 5 years down the line.
There's something about your lived experience, isn't it, that shines through there, personal and professionally, where, like you said, it's thinking about what are we trying to do here and for the longevity of the business, but also the people who you're working with.
Yeah.
If you're working across different functions, the impact of a sales decision on the logistics team, manufacturing, marketing, and if it goes wrong, what has to happen afterwards? It's all those things to think about.
Yes, it is. It's all about the decision I take now. How is it going to impact supply chain? How is it going to impact operations? What's the impact on the brand? What's the impact on the people? What's the impact on the employees? It's those decisions sometimes are quite tricky, and certainly in my last role, is I had to make some difficult decisions to consolidate factories. So knowing that unfortunately we were going to have to make some redundancies, it's very tricky. But knowing for the longer term, it was to try and save 2,000 jobs elsewhere. So it's looking at the picture again and saying, okay, the longer term is I'm trying to save more jobs than what I'm currently laying off.
Yeah.
It's still not easy because you've got people who rely on you.
Oh no, it's a trade-off. Everyone else talks about, career achievements and milestones, but having to lay off people is very difficult and very challenging because it's people's livelihoods at the end of the day.
Especially with my background, seeing my parents being unemployed and seeing the impact they had on me and how I was treated in school. I didn't have the newest trainers. I didn't have the best plans. And children can be cruel sometimes. So I always have that in the back of my head as what you're doing is going to have an impact on them and their children. And
yeah, there's a massive knock-on effect. Definitely.
Yeah,
so reflecting on your career break, which I love the fact that on your LinkedIn, you actually put it on there, career break, which a lot of people hide from their CVs. And actually, it is an important part of your life where you decided to pump the brakes and say, I'm doing something different now, and this is important to me. What insights did you gain during that time that's influenced the direction you want to go in the next few years and also potentially your leadership style?
Yeah. It's a really interesting question, because I used to be one of those people who used to look at the CVs of people on a career break going, well, they haven't tried hard enough to get another job. What are they hiding? Obviously, they're not good enough. So that's the first insight, which is don't take things on face value. You do not know why that person had that career break. Was it because they wanted to spend more time with the family? Was it because they were being a carer for somebody? Was it because they had ill health? Is you don't know why they have that career break. So that's the first insight, is just having a career break itself and seeing that on someone's CV. But taking time for yourself is really important. It, certainly for mental health, is making sure you find something that gives you back. Sometimes you can get lost in being so focused on the career, you should forget about you. You forget about why you exist, what you do, what you bring to the world. And I used that time really wisely, which was really looking at my career, put a lot of weight on. So it was about getting back into fitness, making sure that, again, thinking in longer term, as I want to be around for my daughter for as long as I can. So I need to be as fit and healthy as I can be. As I said, my friend was diagnosed with MND, so I wanted to give something back. And sometimes in business, again, you forget that. You forget about what can we do as a business to give something back into the world? How can I help charities? How can I help raise funds? How can I help raise awareness? And just giving me the capacity to just relax. It's okay to just take time out. It doesn't have to be a constant grindstone. But I think probably the biggest one is, for those of you who know me, know I am full force. I am a love fishy, so I'm going for it. The Trailblazer has helped me to take that pause and just go, right, is this the right thing to do? Take that calmness and just take that period of reflection. So I think taking a step back is probably my biggest learning out of the whole career break piece.
Let's talk about self-care, because I'm a big advocate for women also taking space and time for themselves.
Yes.
We are naturally carers. We are always caring about whether it's our families, our children. It's a big responsibility on our shoulders. What does self-care mean to you, and what are some of the practices that you've done? You talked about getting yourself together. What have you been doing, Nadine?
Well, today's a prime example. So the story goes at 7 o'clock, did a 30-mile bike ride, and then I like to do walks. So every Saturday or Sunday, I set myself a challenge in the years to walk 2,024 miles to help raise awareness for MND. But what that time gives me is time of reflection. So I put my earphones in, listen to podcasts, get some insights. So self-care to me is about health, but mental health as well. It's just listening to podcasts and sometimes give you that just insight we're looking for. It can give you inspiration, and it can also just help you with sometimes have to put music on and just all for listening to music. You just have time, appreciating nature, just not being in the hustle and bustle. So that's what self-care is to me, is taking that time out. And I'm really lucky. I've got an extremely supportive husband who just said, right, off you go, generally give him what he wants. Then I basically went there 4 days a week. So every Wednesday I would have a day off where I go to the gym, I'd go paddleboard, and I even have spa days, which is that whole me just taking time again. And I do believe that gives me the energy for the other 4 days a week to basically work the equivalent of 5 days a week anyway, because I'm so invigorated each the weekend and the midday break. It just keeps that energy up and keeps that passion up, and that's why I think burnout is something we've all got to be aware of. Is you've got to take time for yourself, otherwise you can't be everything. You can't do everything. And that's been a big lesson for me, is trying to be the best wife I could be, the best mum I could be, the best MD I could be, the best peer I could be, the best boss I could be. You can't have it all. So
You can't, isn't it? Yeah, you have to be moving the dials and adapting to the different phases of your life, and reprioritizing at different stages, I think, is really key.
Many years ago, I did a training course called Investment and Excellence, and I became to the point where I was in one of the biggest things it got you to do is to do a balance wheel. So on the balance wheel, you write things about health, fitness, family, love, education, and whatever you want that wheel to be, which is important to you. And you score yourself out of 10. And basically what allows you to do is to go, okay, there's an area in my balance wheel that I'm not paying as much attention to. So I need to just shift the dial a little bit to make sure I've got this balance wheel. And I've always lived by that. And every now and again, I'll do a little balance wheel and say, okay, what's the things that are important to me? how am I scoring? All right, I've dropped off a little bit there, and now need to refocus my life in that area.
That's such a good way of looking at that, because we'll have different women at different stages of their lives listening to the podcast. So they may not be able to afford a great bike or join a gym. Walking, it's
Walking,
free. Get out the house or your flat or wherever you're living and just embrace the sunlight. They always say sunlight before screen time is a
yes.
big thing that's going on. And just getting out there and getting your steps is the best way to start. And as you then improve in these little areas, I believe in incremental gains, then you can progress to, I think I will join a running club, or I will now join a tri club. I can afford to buy a snazzy bike, or etc. etc. There is no excuse for you not to start taking care of yourself at the different stages of your life.
No, I think walking is so underestimated, and it's the thing that I did to start my weight loss journey. To do walking was combined with trying to raise money, but walking is I try to, well, I do walk 12,000 steps every single day, rain or shine. I even bought myself an indoor treadmill, but yeah, just even getting out your front door, taking in the fresh air, even in the rain, is just mentally and physically the best thing you can do.
That's amazing. You mentioned loving to see others achieve great things, and having interviewed so many women, was talking about how networking, but also mentorship has played a very big role in either them moving into the next stage of their life or seeing someone who they've mentored or coached progress. Do you want to share a story of how you've helped someone in your journey achieve a goal, how that's impacted you in your journey as well?
Yes. But I say that's what makes me when I'm the happiest, when I see somebody else achieve something really good. I suppose good in how about you use early on in my HR career, I had a HR advisor who was working for me, and she'd come from a company, a boss who was not great. So she came in with extreme low self-esteem, doubting her ability, doubting what she could do, but she had a real passion to want to go further in life. She wanted to be a HR director, and as a HR director, she said, "I want to be a HR director. How did you get there? What did you do?" Da, 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 da. So I think what I needed to do, please. So the first thing what you need to do is understand that end goal. Why do you want to get to that end goal? What is it that's important to you to get to that end goal? If it's just purely financial, then it's going to be a very difficult journey. But that you want to have an impact, an influence, you want to change things, you want to make a difference in the world, then that's a very easy way to start helping somebody. So the third thing I had to do was, let's call it Barbara. The third thing I had to do with Barbara was to build up that self-esteem again, was to help her to understand all the great things that she'd achieved so far in her life. She hadn't got to the position of being a HR advisor by not being intelligent or not being proactive or not being useful or good at what she did. So it's about helping her really build up that self-esteem all of the time. So sitting down there, just asking questions, and I suppose that's where that curious nature comes in again, is asking questions to her to help her see her own responses. So not telling her how she was good, but helping her to tell herself how she was good. Once built up that whole self-esteem, well, again, start to say, okay, so you want to be a HR director, you've got experience in this area of HR, but you haven't got this experience, this experience, this experience. So let's talk about secondments. Let's talk about projects we can give you that you can do to give you that experience to help a much more rounded CV. So for a few projects. Well, again, you have to balance that with other people, because you haven't just got one person in your team. You don't want to do favoritism, so I did the same thing with other people, is made sure that I gave people projects to give them that experience. And then I asked her to then start helping other people, to helping junior people in HR as she progressed through her career. Now you start paying it back. So help mentor and give guidance to other people. I was also very open and honest and said, you might not get to do this in this business. And there's something that I call the Pleiadian effect, my fair lady, which is if you get progression in a company, people will always see you where you started. So it's a bit like there's an Eliza Doolittle line which basically says that Henry Higgins will always see her as a flower girl because that's how he met her. So despite bringing her into being a lady, he always saw her and treated her as a flower girl. So sometimes you have to take that leap to change organizations, to get out of that mindset to help you to progress your career further. She did that. And she is a HR director now, and we're still in touch, and we met her for lunch the other week, and she now wanted to say, okay, so speak to me as an MD, I want to be a better HR director. What do I need to do in business now? What as a managing director who has HR people, what would you say to me now was the most important thing? So I'm really lucky. I've got a lot of ex people who work for me who I'm still in touch with and still ask me questions and still want to know how to progress and say, what would you do in this circumstance, Nadine? And one of them even says, as a HR director, I always go, what would Nadine do? Which is probably the biggest compliment somebody can ever say to you, which is, what would Nadine do in this circumstance?
You become an acronym now. That's highest form of praise, isn't it, as well? But you've shared some really great insights. I think one of the reasons why she's also successful is she took action. So she sought advice and put in the work herself to get herself to the next level. And I love what you said about progression. If you are complacent and too comfortable in a certain area, that is not where growth comes from. Growth comes from stepping out of your comfort zone, moving into unknown territories, and that is how you develop as a leader, as a person. It's so interesting, but when we're in that situation, we as humans just think, there is no way I'm going to get over this. There's no way I'm going to make a difference somewhere else. I'm in my comfort zone. I know this business. I know this area, but actually the growth and the development comes from stepping into the unknown.
Yes, it is. And it's one of those ones which is because you're up against other people who are talented as well. So it's not just you who wants this career path, you're up against another 4 or 5 people who've also got this career path as well. So is sometimes you have to make that move. And that's one of the reasons why I left Fulmar, because I wanted the next level. So I had to take that risk and move to a different company, an unknown company. And that's what you have to do sometimes if you want to progress.
Yeah, and there's something there about what you said is there as many good leaders as bad leaders, and unfortunately, and this conversation, the candid conversation that you had with her at the time may not have been possible if you weren't the leader that you were. So for the audience that's listening, you may try to bring on that conversation and may not yield the same results. It's time then to reflect and think, maybe other opportunities are where I need to go to get that growth. That is the hard truth as well, isn't it?
And I don't believe in saying untruths to people. Is you've got to be authentic. People see through non-authentic people. Like, you've got to be authentic. You've got to believe what you say, and people can see straight through it. People aren't stupid. So sometimes you've got to have those hard conversations, which is, it might not be possible to do what you want to do in this business. So you might have to think, or it might not be, you want to go into this area. I'm sorry, but you haven't got the experience yet, and you need to go and do X, Y, Z to broaden your horizons to get you to that place where you want to.
The things you're working on next. You've had such an amazing career and a great career journey, so to say. What's inspiring you now? What is getting you out of bed? And where do you see yourself from a career perspective and personal perspective as well?
Yeah, I think the first one is this company, True Freedom. It's just because it's such a great company that it's about changing lives of people for good. So it's really easy to get up and be passionate for that. But ultimately, longer term, I'd love to get into non-exec directorship. I'd love to go and help mentor other small businesses, other weak female leaders, to go and help on mergers and acquisitions, because I've done a lot of mergers and acquisitions in my background. to help turn around companies. So yeah, my longer term goal is to be a non-exec director. What I suppose doing these podcasts is hopefully sharing a little look and wisdom. I can just help one person, then me talking to you has been valuable time. So just knowing that I might help other people is where I'm seeing the future. It's all about, that personal achievement, but also keeping on with that theme is if I can help others do better, then I like to do that. If I can see others getting results, then that's a great accomplishment.
And definitely with all that we've been seeing in the news of businesses going under, not surviving, and you always wonder, did they have the right team? What could have been that turnaround strategy? How could this have gone another direction? I think it's important to know that there are people out there such as yourself who are like, hey, call on me, so we can help potentially turn this business around and move it in the right direction. And also, there are great up and coming brands like Sweet Freedom who just have a different point of view, different purpose, mission, vision, that we need new businesses, new ideas that are just looking at the consumer from a different lens.
Yes, it's and as a Jane, and that's another reason I not only because of the ethics of Sweet Freedom, but I wanted to get small business experience because FMCG, so big corporates where you've got lots of money, lots of people to invest in a very different world to small and medium companies. And honestly, there's a bit of a culture shock coming into an SMB. I was used to working for a client but such a big brand like Linda McCartney, where I could pretty much pick up the phone to any buyer in retail and say, can I have a meeting, please, or sort about X, Y, Z. You come to an SME when no one's heard of your brand, no one knows who you are, and you go, can I have a meeting? And they're like, hey, I ain't got time for you. So you suddenly go, all right, okay, I have to think about this a little bit differently. So again, I hope I could help people to understand as an SME, there's very different challenges. In FMCGs, I didn't really have to worry about cash flow, how much money was in the bank. I had a big company with lots of money in the bank. Whereas in SME, you're looking at a bank statement every single day going, right, okay, I've got to plan my production, I've got to plan what my spend is, what my outcomes are, because again, cash in the bank is critical to a small business. So again, hope in the future I can help small businesses as well as big businesses, because as I say, I've got lots of experience in mergers to help people with this, how to make mergers successful, because it's not only about the business you buy, it's about how you integrate that business into yours and how you get the synergies and how you get the best out of people. So yeah, that's what I'd like to help with in the future.
On reflection and hindsight, what would you say are the professional milestones that you're most proud of?
I think the first one was, because I left school with not many qualifications, was to work full-time and do a part-time degree, so do an undergraduate in HR. So that takes a lot of commitment and time, and I suppose seeing my graduating, which I never thought I would do, even the background I was, being with the people who I was, people just didn't go to university, they didn't graduate, they didn't have that sort of stroll. So that's probably my first proudest moment is graduating university. The second one would probably be, again, something out of adversity, is unfortunately I have an experience in HR where we lost 2 of our employees in the 7/7 bombing, and how I behaved during that time, how I worked with the family. We also had somebody who was severely injured, and helping her to, and it sounds awful, exiting the business in the right way, that she had the right support with the right things around her. We didn't do it quickly. So I'm quite proud of that moment of how I behaved in that instance and how I got the company to behave in the right way towards the family of the victims of 7/7. The business turnaround that I achieved in my last company that I'm really proud of is to take a loss-making business and to turn it into a highly profitable business, and doing the things that I set out to do at the start, which was to say to employees, trust me, and we're on this journey together. You've got to believe in what I'm doing. We shouldn't be ashamed of making money as a business, because if we make money, I can invest it back into you. I can invest it back into your wages, back into your benefit, back into your personal development, and we can be a great company together. If you don't make money, it's very difficult to do that. So it's not going to be a very enjoyable career. So doing that turnaround and getting people on board to believe in the journey and to help us turn around that business is probably another fantastic achievement. And then my final thing that I'm proud of is bringing out a new product that I had no experience in a new drink, and getting to see that product come to fruition from an idea of watching Bake Off the professionals and seeing an ingredient go, ooh, that sounds interesting. It's a normal waste product. It gives you natural sweetness. So again, building into the ethics of sweet freedom with that natural sweetness, is finding things that are natural. So yeah, I still got the next challenge though, so got to get listed everywhere. But hey, that's the next challenge. So yeah, looking back at my milestones, there's some really, really things that I'm, from a professional, I suppose from a personal perspective, is being able to be a supportive and caring mum to my daughter and helping her through her challenges that she's got with an autistic child, and trying to help her have a future which is going to be beneficial, because unfortunately the statistics are not very good for severely autistic children. Is that sort of only 10% will go on to have any sort of job. 90% will be unemployed. So thinking about how we can help her on her journey, so the first one is getting her into the right school. The second one is helping her to understand positives about herself. So from a personal perspective is self-care. And again, you've still got lots of challenges ahead with that.
Nadine, such a good way to circle back, isn't it? And just reflecting on your life and your career, and just humanizing you as well. Someone may look at your profile on LinkedIn and say, oh my goodness, this amazing, badass woman, she's just a titan and she's done all these things and now she's an MD. But you know, you've lived a life, you've had your own experiences, your own challenges where you've had to learn from that. And this is the purpose of the podcast, to bring people to life, to say there is nothing insurmountable in terms of what you're going through. There is a way. It may be a different path. You are unique, you are you, and it's important to sort of reflect on that.
Yeah, this is a great podcast to help people to say you will have challenges in life. Not everything is going to be easy. You will face brick walls, but it's not insurmountable. And there's people out there who can help. So sometimes don't try and do it alone. There are plenty of people out there who you can reach out to, some great coaches, some great mentors, great networks. And networking is critical, just to hear other people's stories. You can apply it to yourself. So yeah, love this podcast just for helping people to go, I'm a bit stuck, what do I do next? So there's people out there. You're not alone.
You're not alone. That's a really good one. We always end the podcast with Trailblazer takeaway tips. So 3 things to guide our viewers, our audiences, because someone may have clicked on this podcast and just clicked right to the end. If they just click on the Trailblazer takeaway tips, we're happy as well. What would you say are your 3 takeaway tips for anyone listening?
I suppose my first takeaway tip was something I've thought about already. Is find your balance wheel. Know what's important to you. Know where you want to focus your life, and do your own balance wheel. Is the first one. The second one is find networking opportunities, because people have been through what you're going through. There are people out there who can help and advise you. So networking is also critical. And I think the final one is have fun. Is not everything has to be so serious. Is career is serious, life is serious, challenges are serious. But if you don't enjoy it, then it's a lot harder.
I love that. Life is for living, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yes. So yeah, that will be it.
Nadine, thank you so much. I've learned so much. I will actually be doing the balance wheel, going back and reflecting. I've got a mood board where I've sort of like put all my things that I'm focusing on, and I tend to take lots of notes, but I think the exercise of the balance wheel is a very good one. Just to say, okay, where am I dialing up here, or where do I need to dial down? And, we are constantly work in progress as women as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose if I was sneaking a fourth one, it would be never stop learning.
There you go. Yeah, sneaky one. Love that.
Sneaky one.
Never stop learning. Yeah. That's a really good one. Nadine, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. And for the audience out there, this has been the Trailblazers Experience podcast. I would encourage you to follow, like, share, subscribe. We are on all streaming platforms, and tell another woman about the podcast. Thank you very much.